Hey everyone. Tonight we begin not in a grand war room or a field of glory, but in the quiet moments before disaster where arrogance whispers louder than reason. Imagine the sea, calm and endless, as a live torpedo cuts toward the president's ship. Picture a general in the Alps, sending men to die again and again, or a Roman commander marching his legions into a forest that would become their grave. From emperors who mocked envoys to mad kings who erased their own nations. History isn't just written by the victors, it's haunted by the fools, the kind of men who mistook pride for courage and led thousands to ruin. If exploring history's most spectacular blunders helps you drift to sleep, please like and subscribe, and tell me what's the most foolish decision in history you'd undo if you could. Now dim the lights and follow me into a night where stupidity changed the course of empires. You are there, floating upon the vast, deep breath of the Atlantic Ocean. The moon, a pale whisper in the ink-black sky, casts a shimmering path across the water, touching the steel-gray silhouettes of a naval fleet. You feel the gentle sway of the ship beneath you, a rhythmic lull that contradicts the immense weight of the historical moment. It's late, and the night air is cool and crisp, carrying the faint, briny scent of the sea. Among these silent sentinels, the USS Iowa glides with a quiet purpose, a behemoth of power wrapped in the deceptive calm of the ocean. Aboard this vessel, within its intricate heart, rests Franklin D. Roosevelt. You can almost feel the presence of his steady, unwavering spirit, even as his physical form remains still, touched by a paralysis that could not, would not, touch his will. He journeys toward distant shores Cairo, Tehran, carrying not just his own person, but the hopes and fears of a world caught in the throes of war. The fate of nations, the shape of the future, all seem to rest lightly on the deck of this ship, under the watchful, indifferent gaze of the stars. Around you, other ships, destroyers and escorts, maintain their silent vigil, dark shapes against the darker sea. You perceive the unseen tension, a palpable hum beneath the quiet of wartime. It's a silence pregnant with expectation, with the understanding that danger, though unseen, always lurks. Yet, for now, all is calm. The world beyond this fleet, with its battles and its cries, feels momentarily distant, a dream almost forgotten. Deep below the deck, where the pulse of the ship truly beats, sailors are preparing for a routine. The clanking of metal, the low murmur of voices, the scent of oil and salt water mingle in the confined spaces. It's a gunnery drill, a familiar rhythm of training and readiness. You might imagine the anticipation, the almost playful competitiveness as targets are prepared. Balloons, simple and fragile, are sent soaring into the wind, ephemeral marks against the sky, waiting for the thunder to find them. And then, the roar, the deep, guttural expulsion of power from the massive guns, a sound that vibrates through the very structure of the ship, through the water, through the air around you. And then, often, laughter follows success, a momentary release of joy and camaraderie, a brief human sound against the vast indifference of the ocean. No one, not in the quiet corridors, not on the vast decks, not among the men who load the ammunition, realizes the precariousness of this moment. They are merely performing their duties, following their routines. Yet, in this ordinary night, within this ordinary drill, A single, careless hand is poised to alter the course of history. You are on the precipice, a silent witness to the subtle shift from routine to catastrophe. Tonight, you sense it. The chilling truth that carelessness can be a force far more destructive, far more insidious than any declared enemy. The whispers of the sea, the soft hum of the ship, all seem to hold their breath, waiting for the inevitable, for the moment when a simple, thoughtless act will unravel the fragile fabric of an entire world. The rhythmic hum of the USS Iowa continues, but now, a subtle tremor of wrongness begins to weave through the air. You are in the heart of this unfolding drama. Perhaps standing near the open torpedo tubes, sensing the anticipation of the drill. Torpedo man Lon Dawson, a man focused on his task, yet perhaps distracted by the late hour or the repetitive nature of his work, is loading the third tube. His movements are practiced, almost automatic. You might hear the metallic slide of the torpedo, the soft clunk as it settles into place. But in that moment, a crucial detail, a small yet profoundly significant safety pin, is forgotten. A simple omission, easily overlooked in the rhythm of the drill, yet one that will echo with terrifying consequence. Then, the unthinkable happens. Not a target balloon, but a live torpedo, sleek and deadly, is accidentally launched. You can almost see it. A sudden, horrifying white streak tearing through the dark water, leaving a churning trail in its wake. It is no longer a drill. It is reality, cutting through the calm night. And you realize, with a sickening lurch, that its trajectory is unmistakable directly toward the massive, unsuspecting hull of President Roosevelt's ship. A quiet panic begins to spread, a cold wave washing over the fleet. The carefully maintained wartime silence, a shield against detection, now becomes a terrible constraint. Radio contact is forbidden, a rule enforced for the very safety of the high-value target. There is no time for warnings, no time for complex signals. The seconds, precious and fleeting, begin to vanish into the vastness of the ocean. You might feel the frantic energy, the desperate attempts to communicate. Signal lamps flash, beams of light cutting through the darkness. But in the urgency, in the fear, the messages are confused, twisted. Torpedo from the other side. The flashing lights erroneously proclaim, sending precious attention in the wrong direction, compounding the danger. Each moment lost is a moment closer to disaster. Suddenly, a captain, defying orders, grabbing the forbidden radio, his voice cutting through the static with a raw urgency you can almost feel. Turn hard right, a desperate command, a gamble against protocol and time. You imagine the crew scrambling, the ship groaning under the sudden, violent shift of its massive bulk, the sea churning around its rudder as it fights to obey. Above deck, amidst the chaos, President Roosevelt, with that same unshakable resolve, demands to be wheeled out. You might picture him, a figure of stoic determination, facing the impending threat head-on, refusing to be sheltered from the fate of his ship and his men. From his vantage point, he witnesses the confusion, the terrible misdirection. The massive guns of the Iowa, moments ago aimed at distant, harmless targets, now swivel in bewildered synchronicity, not at the approaching torpedo, but at their own escort ship, their silent protector, a testament to the utter disarray that a single mistake can create. The seconds stretch, becoming an eternity. You hold your breath, and then, with a gasp of collective relief, you can almost hear the torpedo misses. By mere agonizing seconds, it glides past the stern of the USS Iowa, a near brush with history, a whisper of what could have been. You might hear the muffled thud, the harmless explosion astern, a sound that, under different circumstances, would be devastating. But here, now, is a symphony of salvation. Lon Dawson, the unwitting architect of this near catastrophe, is arrested. His moment of forgetfulness now a mark of infamy. The entire fleet, once proud and resolute, is shamed by the internal blunder. Yet, amid the aftermath, the tension, the relief, President Roosevelt does something remarkable. He simply laughs, a deep, resonant laugh, perhaps of disbelief, perhaps of the sheer absurdity of it all. It's a chilling reminder, felt in the very marrow of your bones, that even the grandest empires, the strongest leaders, can be brought to the brink by the smallest, most careless human error. One mistake, one forgotten pin, and the course of an entire war, the fate of the free world, could have been irrevocably, tragically altered. Now, you are transported to a different landscape, one of stark, unforgiving beauty. The Italian front, in the heart of the Alps, glows with a frost-bitten light. A desolate canvas of rock and ice punctuated by the distant, angry flicker of gunfire. You feel the biting chill in the air, the wind whistling through the high mountain passes, carrying the scent of pine and something else, something metallic and acrid that speaks of conflict. Here, in this formidable terrain, stands General Luigi Cadorna. You can almost see him, a figure steeped in the legacy of his father, a national hero, believing with an unwavering, almost dangerous certainty that glory is his birthright. He is a man who sees the grandeur of his own destiny reflected in the jagged peaks, yet fails to see the brutal reality facing his men. He commands an army, a staggering force of some 875,000 souls. Yet they are woefully under-equipped, sent to face not just an enemy army, but the impregnable fortresses of the Austro-Hungarian line, carved into the very stone of the mountains. You watch as the story unfolds, a repetitive, tragic cycle. 11 offensives are launched. Each one, you realize with a sinking heart, is a failure. And each failure, you perceive, is deadlier than the last. The mountains around the Isonzo River, majestic and ancient, become unwitting witnesses. They echo not with the triumphant shouts of victory, but with the despairing cries of hopeless charges. You might imagine the sound of countless men scrambling up impossible slopes, only to be cut down by unseen fire, their bodies broken against the unyielding rock. The cold, crisp air fills with the bitter taste of defeat. You listen as Cadorna's response filters down through the ranks, a chilling decree that reinforces the sense of his detachment. He doesn't question his tactics, he questions the men. His solution to these unending losses is not strategy, but cruelty. He orders the execution of those deemed weak, blaming the soldiers for the very futility of his commands. He demands discipline, a word that, in this context, sounds like a hammer blow. You can almost feel the fear, the crushing despair that must have settled upon the hearts of the men, trapped between an unyielding enemy, an impossible landscape, and an unmerciful commander. The very ground beneath you seems to rebel. You sense the futility. The rocks are too hard to dig effective trenches, the mountain earth too unstable, and the meager defenses they manage to carve out collapse under the relentless shelling. Yet, despite the obvious, undeniable evidence of failure, the attacks continue. The cycle of death, the relentless, pointless charges, persist day after day, week after week, a grim and endless tableau in the snow-dusted peaks. The inevitable eventually arrives. You witness the culminating disaster at Caporetto. The Italian army, broken not just by the enemy, but by the will of its own general, shatters. In a horrifyingly short span of weeks, a vast front stretching for 100 miles collapses. The gains of years erased in a moment of utter defeat. Cadorna, faced with the ruin of his grand ambitions, flees, even in retreat. His arrogance remains untempered. He orders the summary execution of his own retreating officers, refusing to accept responsibility, choosing instead to blame everyone but himself. You are left with a profound sense of the true enemy that plagued Italy on these frozen slopes. It was not the cold, not the formidable fortresses, not even the enemy soldiers themselves, but the unyielding, blinding arrogance of one man. It was this singular flaw, more than any weapon, that led so many souls to their graves in the silent, unforgiving embrace of the Alps. The mountain wind, you realize, carries not just the scent of frost, but the lingering ghost of foolish pride. The setting shifts again, now to the ancient, shadowed forests of Germania. You find yourself immersed in the year 9 AD, a time when the Roman Empire's vast reach was still stretching, still testing the boundaries of the known world. Rain falls steadily through the thick canopy of leaves, a soft, persistent drumming on the forest floor, turning the earth into a slick, dark mud. The air is damp, heavy with the scent of wet earth, decaying leaves, and the subtle, earthy aroma of unseen things growing beneath the ferns. Here, Publius Quintilius Varus, a man favored by the mighty Augustus himself, rides at the head of 3 Roman legions. You see the gleaming standards, the disciplined formations, the familiar sight of Roman power. Yet, something feels off. A discordant note in this otherwise impressive parade. You notice something else trailing behind the legions, not just the supply trains of war, but entire families, servants, and all the accoutrements of civilian life. It's as if they are not marching to war, but processing to a grand celebration, a casual display of Roman might in a conquered land. You feel a prickle of unease, a sense that this grand procession is deeply, dangerously misplaced. Beside Varus, guiding his way, is a German prince, Arminius. You observe him, outwardly deferential, yet within his gaze a quiet smile plays, a subtle, almost imperceptible gleam in his eyes. You sense a hidden knowledge, a secret anticipation that chills you. He knows these woods intimately, their hidden paths, their treacherous bogs, their dense cover, and he knows, too, the blind spots of the Roman mind. Another chieftain, perhaps sensing the subtle shift in the forest's mood, perhaps seeing the ominous signs invisible to the Romans, approaches Varus with a warning, his voice low. Urgent, you are walking into a trap. You feel the weight of these words, the truth in their simple declaration. But Varus, steeped in the unquestioning belief of Roman superiority, laughs, a dismissive, arrogant laugh that echoes unnaturally through the quiet woods. Barbarians, he scoffs, his voice carrying an undeniable disdain. Cannot deceive Rome. You feel a wave of despair, realizing that his pride has deafened him to the wisdom of the land, to the very warnings meant to save him. And then, as if the forest itself has been holding its breath, it explodes. The calm, rhythmic drumming of the rain is suddenly drowned out by a thunderous roar, a cacophony of sound that rips through the quiet. You see javelins, dark streaks against the gray light, raining down from unseen attackers. The air is thick with the cries of men, the clash of steel, the frantic snorts of horses. The relentless rain continues. But now it feels like a participant, turning the already muddy roads into treacherous, sucking bogs. You watch in dismay as the carefully crafted Roman shields, designed to deflect blows, become waterlogged and heavy, their protection diminished. The powerful composite bows of the auxiliary archers, rendered useless by the damp, failed to loose their arrows effectively. The mighty Roman line, usually impregnable, begins to buckle. You feel the claustrophobia of the dense trees, the inability to form their accustomed formations, the disorienting attack from all sides. They are not fighting on an open field, but in a chaotic, tangled maze. Each tree a potential hiding place for an enemy, each shadow a lurking danger. The proud legions, once the terror of the world, are surrounded, overwhelmed, slowly, inexorably collapsing under the relentless, unseen assault. Varus, understanding the utter catastrophe he has wrought, choosing to die with a semblance of honor rather than face the humiliation of capture, falls upon his own sword. The last desperate screams of his legions, the sounds of their agonizing demise, vanish into the storm, swallowed by the indifferent, rain-soaked forest. You are left with the chilling silence that follows, the profound emptiness of a great power, undone by its own unlistening pride. As the first pale light of dawn filters through the still damp branches, you witness the horrifying aftermath. The rain has subsided, leaving a heavy mist hanging low over the forest floor, clinging to the trees like a shroud. You see the devastation, the scale of the massacre slowly revealing itself in the cold light. Thousands upon thousands lie dead, their bodies strewn amidst the mud and broken branches, a grim tapestry of defeat. The once proud Roman standards, symbols of their unwavering authority and might, are nowhere to be seen, lost, captured, or perhaps broken. Their eagles brought low. The very air feels heavy with the scent of blood and damp earth, a stark, visceral reminder of the night's terror. The impact is staggering. You grasp the grim reality the 17th, 18th, and 19th legions, entire formations of Rome's elite fighting force, cease to exist. Their numbers are wiped from the rolls, their names etched forever into the somber annals of this forest. This is not just a defeat. It is an annihilation. And Arminius, the seemingly deferential German prince who had guided Varus into this nightmare, now steps into the light. Once a student of Rome, a man who had learned their ways, their language, their military strategies, he has now become their ultimate nightmare, turning their own lessons against them. You might feel a shiver of respect, mingled with horror, for the cunning and ruthless intelligence that allowed him to orchestrate such a devastating blow. News of the catastrophe travels slowly, painfully, across the vast empire, finally reaching the ears of Emperor Augustus himself. You imagine the scene: the great emperor, the architect of an unprecedented era of peace and prosperity, now consumed by grief and rage. His legendary composure shatters, and you hear, or perhaps simply feel, the anguish of his anguished cry, repeated again and again, echoing through the marble halls. Varus, give me back my legions. It is a lament that speaks not just of military loss, but of a deeply personal betrayal, of a wound inflicted upon the very soul of the empire. In the wake of this disaster, a profound shift occurs. The Roman Empire, for centuries accustomed to expansion, to pushing its boundaries ever further, makes a decision that will shape its destiny for generations. It withdraws. From this point forward, Germania, this dark and treacherous land, will remain beyond its grasp, an untamed wilderness, forever scarred by the memory of Varus's arrogance. You feel the weight of this strategic retreat, a recognition of limits, a humbling defeat that forces the mighty empire to rethink its ambitions. Pride, you realize, has carved its own epitaph into the mud of the Teutoburg forest. It is a harsh, unyielding lesson, written in blood and earth. Somewhere beneath the mists that still cling to the ancient trees, Varus's bones rest, a silent, moss-covered monument to overconfidence, a stark reminder of the dangers of hubris. History, you sense, whispers this profound truth through the rustling leaves and the ancient stones. Even Rome, the empire that seemed eternal, that believed itself invulnerable, could bleed, and bleed profusely, when it stopped listening, when it allowed its own supreme self-belief to deafen it to warnings, to reason, to the very signs of danger that lay before its arrogant gaze. And as you linger, you wonder how many other empires have ignored such whispers, marching to their own inevitable, self-inflicted doom. Now, you journey across vast, windswept steppes, where the horizon stretches endlessly beneath an immense sky. The air here is dry and carries the scent of dust and distant grasses. You hear the rhythmic padding of hooves, the creak of wagon wheels, as a caravan makes its way across this ancient land. These are merchants, you realize, traveling from the east, their carts laden with goods, their hearts full of the hope of peaceful trade. They ride under Mongol banners, symbols of the Great Khan's protection, carrying not just wares, but gifts intended to solidify a fragile peace. They arrive at Otrar, a thriving city in the Khwarezmian Empire, a place of bustling markets and towering walls. But here, the story takes a dark turn. The governor of Khwarezm, Inalchuk, views these travelers not as envoys of peace, but as spies. Perhaps it is paranoia, perhaps a deeply ingrained suspicion, but his perception is fatally flawed. You sense the injustice, the sudden cruelty, as he orders them all executed. The gifts of peace are rejected, the promise of safe passage brutally broken. The vast, silent steppes seem to hold their breath, sensing the profound violation. News of this outrage, carried by the swift horses of messengers, eventually reaches the ears of Genghis Khan, the formidable leader of the Mongols. You might imagine his fury, a quiet, simmering rage that must have been terrible to behold. Yet, remarkably, he does not immediately unleash his armies. Instead, he demonstrates a calculated patience. He sends envoys, not soldiers, diplomatic representatives bearing a message of measured warning. Deliver justice, he commands. His words carried across the great distances. And we will remain friends. It is an offer of clemency, a chance for the Khwarezmian Empire to rectify its grave error, to avoid the terrible wrath of the Mongol hordes. But the king of Khwarezm, Muhammad II, is a man whose arrogance rivals the vastness of his empire. He dismisses the warning, confident in his own power, convinced that the Mongols are merely barbarians to be scoffed at. You perceive his fatal miscalculation, his utter inability to grasp the true nature of the threat. His answer to the Khan's offer of peace is an act of unimaginable hubris and cruelty. He orders the beheading of the Mongol messengers. Their heads are sent back, a grotesque message of defiance and contempt. And then, a profound silence falls across the steppes. It is not the silence of peace, but the ominous quiet that precedes a storm of unimaginable ferocity. You feel the shift in the air, a chilling anticipation. The very horizon, stretching endlessly before you, begins to change, to darken, to shimmer with an unnatural light. And then, you see them, Mongol riders, appearing like a mirage, then growing into an unstoppable force, descending upon the land like a sandstorm, a living, breathing manifestation of vengeance. You feel the tremor in the earth, the thundering hooves, the chilling realization that for every drop of blood spilled by the Khwarezmians, a city, an entire civilization, will burn. This, you understand, is the price of an arrogant king's folly, a debt to be paid in fire and ash across an entire empire. The silence of the steppes is broken, utterly, by the thunderous arrival of the Mongol armies. You witness the terrifying efficiency, the relentless, devastating power of Genghis Khan's vengeance. What unfolds next is a cataclysm, a whirlwind of destruction so absolute it defies comprehension. 2 years. That is all the time it takes. You feel the passage of this brief, brutal span, knowing that within it, an entire empire will be undone. Once mighty cities, jewels of the ancient world, Nishapur, Samarkand, Bukhara, their names once whispered with reverence, now vanish before your eyes. They're consumed by fire, reduced to dust and rubble, their vibrant life extinguished. You see the towering walls crumble, the bustling markets fall silent, the intricate architecture turn to ash. The very air is thick with smoke and the acrid scent of burning, a constant reminder of the devastation. Millions of souls, countless lives, are swept away in the relentless tide of conquest. You might imagine the terror, the desperation, the desperate pleas that filled the air before being swallowed by the roar of battle and the crackle of flames. The rivers themselves, once arteries of life, turn red. Not with blood, though there is plenty of that, but with the ash and dust of incinerated cities, carrying the remnants of a vanished civilization downstream. You watch, horrified, as the landscape itself is transformed, scarred by the terrible wrath of the Khan. And then, the fate of the governor who started it all, Inalchuk, is revealed. He is found, eventually, cornered and captured. You hear the chilling tale of his demise. A punishment both poetic and brutal, molten silver, is poured into his skull. A final agonizing payment for his folly. A testament to the Khan's cold, unyielding justice. Genghis Khan himself, the architect of this widespread destruction, does not gloat. You observe him, or perhaps merely sense his presence, moving through the ruins with a quiet, terrifying resolve. He simply moves on, wordless, his purpose fulfilled, his vengeance exacted. There is no triumph, no celebration, only the methodical continuation of his grand, terrifying vision. King Muhammad II, the proud and foolish ruler who had defied the Khan, flees west. You trace his desperate flight, a man haunted by the ghosts of his own making, pursued by the consequences of his arrogance. He is sick, broken, a shadow of his former self, consumed by the magnitude of his disastrous decision. He dies alone, in exile. His final moments filled not with glory, but with the bitter taste of regret and the crushing weight of his empire's ruin. The Khwarezmian Empire, once a powerful and influential force, ceases to exist. It is erased from the map, utterly wiped away by its king's unparalleled arrogance. You are left with the profound, unsettling silence that follows such destruction. A void where once there was life and grandeur. History's lesson, you realize, is laid bare in these ashes. Simple and stark mercy rejected, compassion scorned, inevitably becomes a fire reborn, consuming all in its path. And as you feel the phantom dust of these forgotten cities on your skin, you understand the terrible price of pride. Our journey now takes us to a small, landlocked nation in the heart of South America, Paraguay. You feel the warmth of the sun here, the lushness of the verdant landscape, yet beneath it, a sense of confinement, of isolation. Here, Francisco Solano Lopez ascends to the Paraguayan throne. You can almost see him, a man of immense, almost pathological pride, a leader of a nation barely 500,000 souls. He dreams of empire, a grand vision that seems utterly disconnected from the humble reality of his country. He worships Napoleon Bonaparte, a distant, historical idol whose grand conquests he yearns to emulate, oblivious to the vast differences in their circumstances. Consider his nation's true standing, a small population, no navy to speak of, and utterly without allies. Yet, blinded by his grandiose ambitions, driven by an unshakable belief in his own military genius, Lopez begins a spree of declarations of war. First, he declares war on Brazil, the giant to his north. Then, astonishingly, on Argentina, another formidable neighbor. And finally, in a move that seals his country's fate, he even declares war on Uruguay. You feel a growing sense of dread, understanding the utter folly of these declarations, the reckless endangerment of his entire nation. The inevitable consequence follows swiftly. The three powerful nations, Brazil, Argentina, and Uruguay, unite against him, forming the formidable Triple Alliance. You witness the sheer imbalance of power, the insurmountable odds that Lopez has brought upon his people. Within a single month, a terrifyingly short span of time, Paraguay loses its nascent fleet, its vital rivers, and with them, its last shreds of hope for victory. The waterways, once conduits of trade, now become avenues for invasion, carrying the enemy deeper into the country. Still, Lopez's delusion persists, his arrogance unwavering. From his headquarters, you hear his unwavering command, echoing with a chilling fanaticism attack. He sends his men, often ill-equipped, poorly trained, and utterly outmatched, into battle after battle, squandering lives with reckless abandon. You are drawn into the heart of one such brutal engagement, the Battle of Tuyuti. It takes place in a swampy, unforgiving landscape, where the ground is treacherous and the air is thick with the buzz of insects and the stench of decay. In a single afternoon, you witness a horrifying massacre. 6,000 men, their lives extinguished in a matter of hours, fall in the muck and mire. The earth drinks their blood, the swamp their tears. Yet, even after such devastating losses, Lopez refuses to acknowledge his own responsibility. He blames no one but his officers, his soldiers, demanding absolute obedience, absolute sacrifice. And with a chilling ruthlessness, he orders anyone who questions his commands, anyone who dares to whisper of retreat or surrender, to be executed. You see him, a mad emperor, marching not toward glory, but through mud and graves, dragging his entire nation with him into an abyss of his own making. The vibrant land of Paraguay, you realize, is slowly being bled dry by the insatiable pride of one man. The years roll on, marked by relentless, brutal warfare. You feel the slow, agonizing erosion of a nation. By 1869, the capital city, Asunción, once a symbol of Paraguayan pride, falls. You see the ruins, the smoke-stained buildings, the empty streets that echo with the ghosts of what once was. Paraguay, once a nation of burgeoning promise, now lies in utter ruins, its infrastructure shattered, its people decimated. Yet, Lopez, clinging to his delusions of Napoleonic grandeur, refuses to surrender. He retreats into the rugged hills, a phantom emperor leading a phantom army. You observe the desperate, heartbreaking scene. He gathers the last vestiges of his nation, women, children, the elderly, forcing them into a desperate, futile struggle, demanding from them sacrifices they cannot possibly give. He is a man consumed by his own warped vision, seeing traitors and cowards everywhere but in his own reflection. His paranoia escalates, his cruelty intensifying with each new setback. You witness the horrifying extent of his madness. He orders the deaths of his own brother, his ministers, his most loyal generals. Anyone who dares to whisper the forbidden word, surrender, is summarily executed. The very heart of his dwindling command structure is ripped apart by his own hand, leaving only fear and unreasoning obedience. Finally, you are brought to his last stand, at a place called Cerro Cora. It is a remote, unassuming spot by a shallow river, far from any grand battlefield. A lonely stage for the end of an emperor and a nation. Wounded, cornered, with the enemy closing in, Lopez utters his last, defiant words, a final whisper of his unyielding pride: "I die with my country." It is a chilling pronouncement, for in many ways, he has indeed brought his country to its knees, dragging it down with him into the abyss. A single bullet, unceremonious and swift, ends his reign, his madness, and his life. He falls beside the shallow river, his empire dissolving around him like mist. When the smoke clears, when the silence finally descends upon the ravaged land, the true, devastating cost of his folly becomes tragically clear. You grasp the horrifying statistics, numbers that speak of a loss almost unimaginable. Only 28,000 Paraguayan men remain alive. 90% of the male population, nearly all of them, are gone, erased. The future of a nation, its ability to rebuild, to grow, to simply exist, has been catastrophically crippled for generations. One man's pride, one man's monstrous ambition, has not just lost a war, but has literally erased a nation, or at least its ability to recover for decades, centuries perhaps. Silence returns, a deep, pervasive quiet that settles over the land. It is the kind of silence that only ruin understands. The profound stillness that follows utter devastation. You feel the weight of this history, the echo of every father who never came home, every brother, every son. And in that quiet, you hear the somber, undeniable truth that the cost of one man's ego can be the obliteration of an entire people. As our journey through history's profound blunders concludes, you find yourself back in a quiet, reflective space, the distant echoes of these tales still lingering in the air around you. From the tense moments aboard the USS Iowa, as a rogue torpedo cut through the Atlantic, to the rain-soaked horror of the Roman forest in Germania. A singular, powerful truth resonates across time's stupidity. In its myriad forms, whispers its chilling message again and again. Empires, you realize, do not always fall due to overwhelming invasion or insurmountable external forces. So often, their collapse is orchestrated from within, by the insidious cancer of arrogance, by the blind conviction of leaders who refuse to listen, to learn, to adapt. It is a quiet, internal rot, often more deadly than any enemy army. Pride, that subtle deceiver, carelessness, that fleeting moment of inattention, and blindness, that willful refusal to see the truth. These are the true assassins of armies, the silent destroyers of nations. They kill more swiftly, more thoroughly, than any bullet, any bomb, any javelin. You feel the weight of this universal lesson, understanding that human fallibility, when paired with power, can unleash forces more destructive than any weapon. The vast, indifferent sea, even now, remembers Lon Dawson's single, careless mistake, the near miss that could have changed the course of World War II. Its waves continue to murmur the tale, a quiet warning carried on the tides. The towering, ancient Alps, cloaked in mist and snow. Remember Cadorna's senseless slaughter, the thousands of lives needlessly thrown away against impregnable rock, a monument to a general's unyielding ego. Their peaks stand as silent witnesses to his folly. The deep, shadowed forests of Germania, still damp and mysterious. Remember Varus's desperate screams? The utter annihilation of 3 Roman legions, a stark testament to the price of imperial overconfidence. The rustling leaves seem to whisper his name through the centuries. The vast, sun-baked deserts, stretching to the horizon. Remember the ashes of Khwarizm, the once proud cities reduced to dust, an entire empire erased by a king's fatal arrogance. The wind still carries the phantom dust of its destruction, and the fertile, silent soil of Paraguay, in the very heart of a continent, remembers every father who never came home, every brother, every son, sacrificed on the altar of one man's insane ambition. The land itself holds the memory of their absence, a profound, enduring emptiness. Tonight, as you drift gently into the soft embrace of sleep, let this profound lesson linger in your thoughts. History, in its vast, intricate tapestry, may often forget the acts of mercy, the quiet moments of grace that soften the harshness of the past. But you understand now. It never, ever forgets foolishness. It preserves these blunders, these terrible miscalculations, not to condemn, but to teach, to whisper to us, even in our dreams, the enduring, crucial wisdom of humility, caution, and clear sight. Rest now, and let these echoes settle into a quiet understanding. You are there, high in the northern mountains of the Philippines. The air around you is thick with mist, a cool, gentle shroud that dampens every sound, muting the world to a soft hush. Pine trees, tall and ancient, loom like quiet sentinels in the swirling fog, their needles glistening with moisture. The ground beneath your feet is uneven, a tangle of roots and damp earth, softened by centuries of fallen leaves. A quiet stillness presses in, broken only by the drip, drip, drip of water. It's a sound that permeates everything here. Water seeping from moss-covered stone, tracing silent paths down the ancient rock faces, collecting in tiny, hidden pools. Each drop echoes with a delicate clarity in the hushed environment, a constant, rhythmic punctuation to the profound silence. As you breathe deeply, the air is cool and carries the earthy scent of wet soil, decaying leaves, and something else. Something faintly metallic, like old rock and deeper secrets. Before you, a dark opening in the earth hints at what lies beyond an old wartime tunnel. One of countless forgotten passages riddling these mountains. These are not mere caves carved by nature. They are the scars of human endeavor, dug deep into the living rock, holding memories of a time when the world was consumed by fire and conflict. Even now, decades later, they continue to breathe a damp, cold air, a testament to their enduring presence. You stand at the threshold, a modern treasure hunter, though perhaps not with a shovel in hand. Your quest is for knowledge, for understanding the whispers carried on the wind, the legends that cling to the very fabric of these hills. You are drawn by the legend of Yamashita's gold, a tale that has captivated minds and driven countless expeditions into these very mountains. The air inside the tunnel, even from where you stand, is cooler, heavier. You imagine the chills seeping into your bones, the absolute darkness that would engulf you just a few feet in. The silence within would be profound, broken only by your own breath, perhaps a faint skittering sound, or that persistent, haunting drip of water. It's a silence that suggests secrets, a silence that seems to hold echoes of past labor and long-forgotten stories. This isn't merely a tale of lost riches. It's a narrative steeped in the stark realities of war. Picture it before the entire world finally succumbed to a fragile peace. Before the dawn broke on a new era, a general, burdened by the weight of a collapsing empire, buried not just a treasure, but a veritable nightmare made of gold. It was a nightmare because of how it was acquired. The sheer human suffering etched into every glittering ounce. We begin our story with General Tomoyuki Yamashita, a name that, even now, carries a complex weight. He was known as the Tiger of Malaya, a commander whose strategic brilliance and ruthless efficiency earned him both fear and respect. He was the last great commander of the Japanese Empire in the Philippines, a man whose fate became inextricably linked with the vast, elusive fortune rumored to be hidden beneath your feet. As you stand here, feeling the cool mist on your skin, inhaling the scent of ancient earth, you are enveloped by an atmosphere heavy with a sense of restless spirits. you can almost feel the quiet presence of those who toiled here, those who guarded, and those who perhaps never left these hidden passages. This entire landscape, from the highest peak to the deepest tunnel, feels imbued with a profound sense of secrets, patiently waiting to be discovered, or perhaps to remain forever buried. The gold, if it truly exists, is not just metal. It is a repository of human history, pain, and an almost unbearable hope. Let's delve deeper into the origins of this buried nightmare. Imagine yourself transported back in time, not to these misty mountains, but to the bustling yet deeply troubled cities of 1930s Japan. You are walking through narrow streets, past wooden houses and vibrant market stalls. But there's an undercurrent of tension, a gnawing anxiety beneath the surface. The air is thick with the smells of charcoal fires, miso soup, and the faint, ever-present scent of salt water from the nearby harbors. But beneath these familiar aromas, there's a different kind of scent, the smell of desperation. This was a nation in the grip of a profound economic crisis. You see the faces of people on the street, shopkeepers struggling to make ends meet, families tightening their belts, farmers leaving their ancestral lands for the uncertain promise of the cities. Mass unemployment casts a long shadow over families, making dreams feel distant and daily survival a constant struggle. Food shortages are not just statistics in a newspaper. They are the rumbling in your own stomach, the worry etched on the faces of mothers trying to feed their children. The quiet hum of daily life is underscored by a growing sense of urgency, a desperate need for change, for salvation. From this fertile ground of widespread hardship, a powerful and dangerous ideology began to blossom within the highest echelons of Japan's military and political leadership. You hear their voices, stern and resolute, in crowded tea houses and hushed government halls. Their conviction is absolute only through decisive action, through military expansion and the acquisition of resources. Can the nation pull itself from the brink? The whisper of war. At first, a faint suggestion grows louder, becoming a thunderous roar. The path they chose was one of conquest and plunder. You witness, through the lens of history, the relentless march of the imperial army. First, into the vast, resource-rich lands of Manchuria, then spreading across the ancient, sprawling territories of China. You see them push further into the lush, vibrant landscapes of Southeast Asia, across the countless islands of the Pacific. Each step of this expansion is marked by occupation, by a brutal assertion of power, and by the systematic looting of everything valuable. Imagine the scenes of a captured city, the sounds of boots on cobblestone streets, the hushed fear in the eyes of the inhabitants. You see soldiers meticulously combing through homes, temples, and banks. They are not merely stealing. They are stripping entire regions of their accumulated wealth. Their cultural heritage, gold, shimmering and heavy, is a primary target. Delicate jewelry, handcrafted over generations, is seized. Sacred statues, imbued with spiritual significance, are taken. Priceless artworks, representing centuries of artistic genius, are ripped from their places. Everything that held value, whether monetary or cultural, is deemed war booty, destined to fuel the insatiable hunger of the empire. A stark, uncompromising mindset begins to form. hardening the hearts and minds of those involved to survive. We must seize everything. This wasn't just a military strategy. It became a deep-seated philosophy, justifying the most extreme actions. It was an ethos born of desperation, hardened by ambition, and executed with chilling efficiency. The very concept of morality became twisted, redefined by the imperative of national survival. You feel the chilling logic of it, the way it could consume individuals and entire nations, turning them into instruments of a vast, acquisitive machine. This insatiable hunger for resources, for the very lifeblood of other nations, laid the foundation for an unprecedented scale of organized plunder, the likes of which would become forever intertwined with the legend we explore tonight. You shift in time and space, the calming mists of the Philippines replaced by a chilling scene in a vast, ancient city across the sea. The name itself, Nanking, conjures images of profound tragedy, a scar on the face of history. Here, the horror that unfolded wasn't merely a localized incident, but a systematic campaign of terror and calculated avarice. As you observe from a respectful distance, a shroud of unspeakable suffering hangs heavy in the air, a stark contrast to the quiet calm we seek. Amidst the screams and the chaos of gunfire, a different kind of activity was also underway. Methodical and chillingly efficient. This was not just a spontaneous act of violence. It was a cold, calculated operation to strip the city of its wealth. You see, with an almost clinical detachment, the systematic plunder of banks, their vaults forced open, their contents carted away. Embassies, once symbols of international diplomacy, are ransacked. Churches, places of solace and sanctuary, are desecrated and stripped bare. Even schools, institutions of learning and hope, are not spared from this ruthless scavenging. Every valuable, every asset is targeted. It was in this crucible of brutality and greed that a dark alliance formed. The underworld, usually relegated to the shadows, was now welcomed into the official machinery of war. You learn of figures like Yoshio Kodama, a notorious Yakuza boss, not just a petty criminal, but a man given special status, a frightening legitimacy, by the highest echelons of the Japanese military. He wasn't merely a participant, he was a key facilitator, empowered to seize wealth across the vast expanse of Asia. Imagine Kodama, a man whose presence would have been both charismatic and menacing, moving through the conquered territories. His networks, his ruthlessness, and his unparalleled access allowed him to accumulate a staggering fortune. By 1945, his personal hoard was estimated to be around $175 million in the currency of that era, an almost unfathomable sum, solidifying his position as one of the most powerful and feared men in wartime Japan. His hands, though never directly pulling the trigger on the battlefield, were deeply stained by the blood of nations, enriched by the suffering of countless individuals. Even as the city reeled under the weight of its ordeal, amidst the lingering echoes of screams and the chilling silence after the gunfire, a peculiar image emerges, that of gold, glittering in the dark. It's a haunting juxtaposition, the exquisite beauty of the precious metal, juxtaposed with the absolute ugliness of its acquisition. This glimmer is not one of hope or prosperity, but a cold, hard reflection of power, dominion, and boundless avarice. Out of this specific blend of unimaginable brutality and unbridled greed, a secret operation, shrouded in euphemism, is said to have emerged. It was given a name that evokes delicate beauty, a stark and disturbing contrast to its true nature, Golden Lily. This innocent-sounding moniker would become synonymous with one of the most audacious and morally bankrupt plunder operations in human history, designed to gather, move, and ultimately hide the vast, ill-gotten gains of an empire on the brink. The stage was set for a chapter of history that would intertwine with the very mountains and whispers we began our journey with. Let's gently unfurl the details of Operation Golden Lily, a name that, with its delicate floral imagery, feels jarringly out of place given its true, brutal purpose. It was a beautiful name, chosen perhaps to mask the ugliness of its mission to systematically gather, transport, and ultimately conceal the staggering wealth plundered from across Asia. This wasn't merely opportunistic looting. It was an organized, state-sponsored operation of unprecedented scale, turning the stolen treasures of entire civilizations into an imperial war chest. According to diligent researchers and those who have meticulously pieced together fragments of this hidden history, Golden Lily was not a small-scale endeavor. It was a monumental undertaking involving meticulous planning and vast resources. They suggest that an astonishing 175 distinct treasure sites were prepared across the Philippine archipelago. Imagine the sheer logistics surveying locations, planning construction, coordinating countless laborers, and managing the movement of immense quantities of stolen goods. These weren't simply dug holes. They were elaborate, hidden vaults carved into the earth, often deep within the mountains or beneath existing structures. The scale of the treasure rumored to be hidden within these sites defies easy comprehension. Estimates from 1945 place the total value at an astounding $100 billion, a figure that, even today, makes the mind reel. This wasn't just gold bullion. It was a vast array of valuables, precious jewels, antique porcelain, sacred religious artifacts, priceless artworks, and more. Each item, now stripped of its original meaning and context, was simply reduced to its material value. Destined to become part of Japan's desperate gamble for survival. But with such immense wealth came an equally immense need for secrecy. The operation was designed to be compartmentalized, with few knowing the full scope. And those who did know too much. Those who were intimately involved in the construction of these subterranean vaults, or in the precise locations of the hidden wealth, faced a grim fate. The whispers suggest that these individuals were allegedly executed, silenced forever, their knowledge buried with them. Some accounts are even more chilling, speaking of forced laborers or even soldiers being entombed alive alongside the gold, to ensure that no witness could ever reveal its location. Imagine the terror, the desperation of such a moment, sealed into the earth with the very treasure they helped to hide, their last breath echoing against walls that would never open again. As you consider the enormity of this undertaking, the question gently arises, is this a real operation? A meticulously planned historical fact? Or is it a myth? Perhaps it's a powerful narrative built on tantalizing fragments of truth, embellished and amplified by post-war imagination, by the desperate hope of countless treasure hunters. The line between documented history and enduring legend blurs, becoming almost indistinguishable in the misty light of speculation. To enhance your immersion, imagine the subtle sounds that might have accompanied such an operation and the faint scratch of a pencil on old, brittle maps, charting clandestine routes and hidden locations. Hear the soft crackle of aged paper as secret documents are unfolded and studied. And, if you listen very closely, perhaps you can discern the faint echo of whispered Japanese, commands given in low tones, plans discussed in hushed voices, all designed to ensure the ultimate secrecy of the golden lily. These sounds, though imagined, add another layer to the atmosphere, drawing you deeper into the quiet, complex mystery of what may lie hidden beneath the earth. Let's journey deeper into the strategic heart of this operation, moving our focus to the Philippines itself. You find yourself observing how these islands, known for their stunning natural beauty and vibrant culture, became, by grim necessity, the central hub for Japan's vast, ill-gotten gains. It was the crucial connection point, a vast natural warehouse linking conquered Southeast Asia to the distant Japanese homeland. The shipping lanes from places like Singapore, Malaya, Indonesia, and China all converged here, funneling an unimaginable flow of stolen treasure. For a time, the plan was simple: gather the spoils, consolidate them in the Philippines, and then ship them home to Japan to bolster the war effort and an ailing economy. But war is a brutal master of improvisation, and plans often shatter under its relentless pressure. You watch as the tide of the conflict dramatically turns. After the devastating Battle of Midway in 1942, Japan's naval dominance, once absolute, begins to crumble. The vast, blue expanse of the Pacific, once a secure highway for imperial ambitions, now becomes a treacherous, deadly gauntlet. The Imperial Navy, crippled and outmaneuvered by the resurgent American fleet, loses control of the vital sea lanes. Shipping treasure back to Japan, a journey of thousands of miles across open water, becomes an incredibly risky proposition, then an almost impossible one. Every vessel that dares to venture forth faces the constant, unseen threat of Allied submarines and bombers. The risk of losing billions of dollars worth of gold and precious artifacts to the cold, dark depths of the ocean becomes too high, too unthinkable. And so, with their supply lines severed and their hopes for swift victory dimming, the only remaining option for the Japanese command is a desperate, monumental gamble to hide it all, to bury the vast accumulation of wealth directly within the very islands where it was temporarily stored. The Philippines, once a transit point, now transforms into a colossal, natural vault. You can almost feel the ground beneath your feet being eyed with new purpose. Old Spanish forts, remnants of a colonial past, with their thick stone walls and subterranean passages, are pressed into service. Their ancient defenses now repurposed to guard a different kind of treasure. Stone cathedrals, built centuries ago with grand catacombs beneath their sacred floors, become unlikely repositories. The island's natural landscape, too, is exploited vast limestone caves, sculpted by millennia of water and earth, are expanded and fortified. And deep within the rugged mountain ranges, an intricate network of new bunkers and tunnels is hastily constructed. These places, once symbols of history, faith, or natural wonder, are now designated as temporary vaults and, for many, permanent tombs. Imagine the sheer scale of the labor involved. You hear the rhythmic clang of picks and shovels, the low murmurs of forced labor gangs. Filipino men compelled to dig their own land into an imperial treasure chest. They are driven by Japanese soldiers, working under the scorching tropical sun or deep within the damp, suffocating confines of the earth. The sounds of their arduous work fill the air for weeks, for months. The scraping of rock, the thud of dirt, the strained grunts of men pushed beyond endurance. Then, as suddenly as it began, the digging ceases. You hear a different kind of sound now. One that sends a shiver down your spine, the dull, muffled thud of distant explosions. One by one, the entrances to these newly constructed vaults, these hidden chambers, these makeshift tombs, are systematically sealed. Tunnels are collapsed, reinforced with concrete or cleverly disguised, making them almost impossible to find again. The earth itself becomes an accomplice, a silent keeper of secrets, swallowing the evidence, entombing the treasure, and sometimes those who knew its precise resting place forever. The mountains and caves of the Philippines become a vast, intricate puzzle box, with billions of dollars worth of gold as its elusive prize. As you settle deeper into this story, let's consider the individuals whose lives intersected with this monumental secret. Those who bore witness to the unbelievable. Their accounts, though fragmented and often harrowing, provide tantalizing glimpses into the true nature of Operation Golden Lily. Imagine a young Japanese officer, Minoru Sato, barely more than a boy in uniform, stationed in the remote, rugged mountains. The air is heavy and humid, the jungle canopy dense, filtering the sunlight into shifting patterns on the forest floor. You observe him, still young enough to feel the tug of curiosity, even amidst the grim realities of war. One day, he receives a direct order, a command from his superiors to carry 2 unassuming ammo boxes deep into the mountains, to a location whose exact purpose is veiled in secrecy. The boxes are heavy, far heavier than they should be if filled with ordinary ammunition. The weight is unnatural, strangely dense. Perhaps it is the strain on his muscles, the arduous trek through the uneven terrain, that finally makes him wonder. Or maybe it is the quiet, almost reverent way the boxes were handled by his superiors. At some point, when he is alone, curiosity overwhelms caution. He pries open the crates, his fingers fumbling with the latches. The metal creaks. A soft, almost imperceptible sound in the vast silence of the jungle. And then, he sees it. No bullets, no military supplies. Instead, a breathtaking collection of sparkling jewelry, catching the meager light filtering through the leaves. A small, intricately crafted golden crown, its metal gleaming with the richness of pure gold, lies nestled amidst the gems and, unmistakably, neat stacks of heavy gold bars, each one an undeniable symbol of immense wealth. The weight suddenly makes terrifying sense. He quickly reseals the crates, his heart pounding, the jungle's silence now feeling oppressive, filled with the enormity of what he has just seen. He has glimpsed the hidden treasure, and with it, a dangerous secret that would haunt him for the rest of his life. Now, shift your perspective to Ben Valmores, a Filipino teenager during the harsh years of the Japanese occupation. You are him, navigating a perilous world. your very survival often dependent on your quick wit and ability to adapt. He is chosen, perhaps for his intelligence or quiet demeanor, to become the personal valet to a young Japanese noble, whom he knows only as Kimu. This Kimu, Ben later discovers, is Prince Takeda Tsuneyoshi, a cousin of none other than Emperor Hirohito himself. This connection places Ben within the innermost circle of power and, unwittingly, directly in the path of the Golden Lily operation. Through the prince's movements, Ben becomes an unwilling but invaluable witness. He claims to have visited all 175 of the imperial treasure sites, a staggering claim that, if true, positions him as perhaps the most knowledgeable living person regarding the treasure's locations. You see what he describes vast tunnels, some already filled to the ceiling with crates and chests, others in the process of being sealed, the ominous sounds of work. Then the final, resounding thud as the earth is closed off. He watches as these mountains and caves transform from natural features into impenetrable vaults. In the final, desperate days of the war, as the American forces push relentlessly forward and defeat becomes an undeniable reality, Ben faces a terrifying prospect. He is told that he is to be sealed alive with the soldiers guarding the gold, a final, horrifying act to ensure absolute secrecy. You feel the cold dread, the despair. But then, a flicker of mercy from the prince, Kimu, perhaps moved by a shred of humanity or by a personal connection formed over their shared time, spares Ben's life. He is given a Japanese uniform, a ceremonial sword, and, most crucially, a set of maps that allegedly detail the precise locations of the hidden treasure. Ben escapes, a ghost from a past that refused to stay buried. He carries with him not just the memory of the treasure, but the tangible proof of its existence in those maps. However, time, the relentless erosion of memory and circumstance, takes its toll. The uniform, the sword, the precious maps, all are tragically lost over the years, to theft, to the chaotic passage of time, leaving only the indelible memories in Ben's mind. His story becomes a vital, yet frustratingly incomplete, piece of the vast Yamashita puzzle, an echo of what might have been. Now, gently bring yourself forward in time, to the decades following the war, as the legend of Yamashita's gold begins to solidify, morphing from a whispered rumor into a full-blown obsession. You observe the landscape of the Philippines through the eyes of a persistent, almost relentless, human endeavor, the treasure hunt. Ben Valmores, the young witness who miraculously survived, now plays a crucial, if bittersweet, role. He becomes a pointer, a guide for a steady stream of foreign treasure hunters, driven by the lure of unimaginable wealth. You see him, an older man now, his eyes still holding the distant flicker of what he once witnessed, his memories of valuable commodity. These treasure hunters pay for his recollections, for his guidance, for any scrap of information that might lead them to the elusive prize. Teams begin to arrive from all corners of the world, drawn like moths to a flame. They are well equipped, serious in their intent. You observe their sophisticated gear humming metal detectors, sweeping the earth with their electronic gaze, ground-penetrating radar scanners, mapping the hidden subterranean world, powerful drilling rigs biting deep into the resistant rock, and, crucially, vast sums of investor money, flowing freely on the promise of an exponential return. The air around these sites is often charged with a tense, almost palpable excitement. A constant hope that each new survey, each new drill hole, will be the ones. Every report that emerges from these expeditions seems to carry a similar, tantalizing message. They are close, always on the verge of a breakthrough, perpetually just inches away from uncovering a vast chamber, a hidden tunnel, the unmistakable gleam of gold. These updates, carefully crafted and strategically released, serve a vital purpose. They keep the investors hopeful. The dream of sudden, immense wealth, perpetually dangled just out of reach, ensures that the money continues to flow in, fueling the next phase of digging, the next round of equipment, the next expert consultation. What began as a desperate wartime measure has now transformed into a full-fledged cottage industry in the Philippines. You witness the bustling activity around these remote digging sites. Hotels in nearby towns fill up with foreign crews and local support staff. Laborers, often local villagers, find steady, if dangerous, work, digging tirelessly under the supervision of the treasure hunters. Guides, often descendants of those who lived through the occupation, lead the way through treacherous terrain. Their knowledge of the local landscape invaluable. The entire ecosystem surrounding the search for Yamashita's gold hums with activity. A constant, low-frequency vibration fueled by the intoxicating dream of sudden, life-altering wealth. You see the faces of the people involved, the hardened resolve of the experienced prospector, the hopeful glint in the eye of a young laborer, the calculating gaze of an investor. Each person, in their own way, is caught in the golden web, driven by the siren song of a treasure that promises to erase a lifetime of struggle, a generation of poverty. The landscape itself seems to absorb these dreams, holding them in its damp earth, its silent caves, forever waiting to reveal its secrets, or perhaps to keep them buried for eternity. The search is not just for gold. It's a search for a miracle, an enduring testament to human hope and persistence. Let us now turn our attention back to General Tomoyuki Yamashita, the Tiger of Malaya, whose name is inextricably linked to this hidden treasure. By late 1944, the relentless tide of war had turned decisively against Japan. You can feel the shift in momentum, the creeping certainty of defeat that began to settle over the Japanese high command. The United States, having island-hopped across the Pacific, was now preparing its final powerful thrust to retake the Philippines. A crucial strategic point, Yamashita, a brilliant but ultimately doomed commander, was appointed to lead the defense of the archipelago. He faced an impossible task to hold off an overwhelming American force with dwindling resources and isolated troops. You sense the immense pressure on his shoulders, the weight of an entire empire's collapsing hopes. Recognizing the futility of a direct, conventional defense against superior American firepower, he made a strategic, albeit grim, decision. He chose to withdraw his main forces into the rugged, mountainous interior of northern Luzon, around the city of Baguio. His objective was not victory, but delay. He planned to tie up American forces for as long as possible, buying precious time for the defense of the Japanese homeland. While Yamashita strategically retreated into the mountains, a horrific tragedy unfolded in Manila, the capital city, outside his direct command. Japanese Marines cut off and driven to desperation. unleashed a wave of unspeakable violence upon the civilian population. You hear the faint, distant echoes of the Manila massacre, a dark stain on humanity. Tens of thousands of innocent civilians, men, women, and children, perished in a brutal rampage of murder, torture, and destruction, while Yamashita was miles away, fighting his desperate mountain campaign. The atrocities committed by units nominally under his broader command would forever seal his fate. After Japan's surrender in August 1945, the war finally concluded. But for men like Yamashita, the reckoning was just beginning. He was arrested and put on trial for war crimes, specifically accused of failing to control his troops, a controversial charge known as command responsibility. You observe the swift, almost brutal efficiency of the legal proceedings. The trial itself was rushed, a mere echo of justice in the chaotic aftermath of global conflict. In just over a month, the verdict was delivered, and with chilling speed, a death sentence was pronounced. On December 7th, 1945, a date heavy with historical irony, marking the 4th anniversary of the attack on Pearl Harbor, General Tomoyuki Yamashita was led to the gallows. You envision the scene, stark and somber, as the life of the Tiger of Malaya came to an end. He was hanged, his final moments a quiet coda to a life of military might and ultimate defeat. Yet, even in his death, the whispers continued. Some later claimed that he died not merely as a defeated general, not simply as a man held accountable for the unspeakable actions of others, but as a man who knew too much. A man who carried the secret of the hidden gold, the precise locations of billions of dollars worth of treasure, to his grave. His silence, whether born of defiance, loyalty, or simply the finality of death, only served to deepen the mystery, entwining his tragic end even more tightly with the legend of the Golden Lily. As the dust of World War II began to settle, and the geopolitical landscape shifted into the long, tense shadow of the Cold War, a powerful and pervasive theory about Yamashita's gold began to emerge, adding layers of international intrigue to the already complex narrative. You find yourself immersed in a world of covert operations, whispers in dark alleys, and secret agreements made behind closed doors. This theory suggests that the vast treasure wasn't merely left untouched in the Philippine mountains. Instead, it posits that General Douglas MacArthur, the supreme commander of Allied forces in the Pacific, along with various elements of U.S. intelligence, secretly recovered a substantial portion of the treasure. Imagine the clandestine operations, the teams working under the cover of night, meticulously excavating hidden tunnels, their finds carefully cataloged and spirited away. The recovered gold, according to this intricate web of speculation, was then placed into covert bank accounts scattered across the globe. These funds, effectively a black budget of unimaginable proportions, were allegedly used to finance countless Cold War operations. Picture it funding for anti-communist movements, intelligence gathering, proxy wars, and various other shadowy activities that shaped the world for decades, all fueled by the blood money of a forgotten war. It's a sobering thought that the very wealth plundered in such brutality could then be repurposed to fight new ideological battles. At the heart of this intricate financial web, according to the theory, was a key middleman, Severino Santaromana, a Filipino with deep, complex ties to U.S. intelligence. He was a figure of enigma, moving through the shadows, facilitating the movement of vast sums of wealth. When Santa Romana died in 1974, he allegedly left behind a paper fortune of over $600 million, a staggering amount, even in modern currency. His legacy was not just money, but a trail of questions. The theory suggests that multiple gold bullion accounts, holding immense wealth, existed in his name or under various aliases in banks across the world. However, despite numerous attempts, no one has ever successfully claimed this money. It remains locked away, seemingly untouchable, a phantom fortune hinting at even larger secrets, further cementing the idea of a deliberate, impenetrable financial labyrinth designed to keep its origins and purpose hidden. The saga of Yamashita's gold continues to entwine with political power closer to home. Later, the notoriously corrupt dictator of the Philippines, Ferdinand Marcos, was found to have amassed billions in secret gold holdings during his decades-long reign. When confronted with the astonishing scale of his ill-gotten wealth, Marcos famously insisted that his fortune also originated from Yamashita's gold. Was it a convenient lie to explain away his rampant corruption? Or did he genuinely tap into some of the hidden caches? The truth remains elusive, a swirling vortex of claim and counterclaim. As you reflect on these theories, you find yourself at the blurred line between history and conspiracy. Documents surface, only to be dismissed. Testimonies are given, only to be contradicted. Denials are issued, followed by tantalizing half-admissions. The narrative swirls and shifts, like mist in the mountains, making it almost impossible to discern the precise shape of the truth. You are left with a sense that while the gold may be hidden beneath the earth, its true legacy lies in the enduring questions it raises about power, greed, and the hidden forces that shape our world. Bring yourself back to the present, to the quiet hum of tonight. Yet feel the enduring pulse of the story beneath the surface. Today, the deep, green Filipino mountains still whisper with the sound of human endeavor. The persistent, almost ritualistic rhythm of people digging. The search for Yamashita's gold, for all its history and intrigue, is far from over. You can almost hear it, the insistent chirping of metal detectors, cutting through the damp air. Even in the soft rain that often falls over these ancient hills. Each beep, each sustained tone, ignites a fresh spark of hope in the hearts of those holding the devices. Powerful drills bite deep into stubborn stone, their grinding sounds echoing through hidden valleys, pushing further into the earth's embrace. Every hollow sound detected in the rock below could be the elusive sign, a long-lost chamber, a treasure chest waiting to be unearthed. Or it could simply be another empty pocket of air, another geological anomaly, another echo of disappointment in the vast silence. The legend of Yamashita's gold, resilient and captivating, continues its journey through time. It feeds countless books, their pages filled with theories, maps, and tantalizing clues. It fuels protracted lawsuits, as individuals and families battle over claims to discovery rights or alleged shares of recovered wealth. It underpins expensive, arduous expeditions, each one a testament to unwavering belief and undimmed hope. And, perhaps most profoundly, it sustains quiet obsessions, individuals dedicating their lives, their fortunes, their very sanity to the pursuit of this elusive dream. As you listen, you're left with the quiet, unsettling realization of the possibilities. Maybe the treasure, or a significant portion of it, was indeed found and secretly stolen long ago, spirited away by unseen hands into the global network of black funds. Or perhaps, and this is a thought that brings its own quiet relief, it never truly existed at the monumental scale people claim. A grand myth inflated by wartime chaos and post-war longing. What truly remains, far beyond the physical gold or the exact truth of its existence, is something far more powerful, something profoundly human. It is the enduring hunger for one miraculous discovery, the universal desire for that single transformative event that could erase a lifetime of poverty and pain, that could rewrite the story of a family, a village, an entire generation. It's the yearning for a second chance, a sudden windfall that transcends the ordinary and lifts one into a realm of effortless prosperity. So, as you dim the lights even further and feel your breathing slow into a gentle, rhythmic ease, remember this. Somewhere beneath the unyielding mountains, gold may sleep forever, encased in stone, guarded by the earth itself. But the powerful dreams it created, the dreams of hope, of fortune, of a life transformed, those dreams are still very much awake, echoing through the quiet night, beckoning you to ponder the mysteries that lie just beneath the surface of our world.